What's up, Navigating Academia family? This is your buddy Dr. J. Phoenix Singh coming at you, trying a whole new setup here in terms of my Logitech Brio 4K camera. So you guys can let me know whether or not you kind of like this setup as opposed to the old setup where I used to have the camera a little bit higher, kind of pointed down a little bit so that you could basically see my floor, which I know that you all enjoyed, but Daria probably drove her crazy. So let's go ahead and answer today's valued viewer's question. It comes from Purple Cat. So please do remember, guys, when you have your question, let me know your real name, at least your first name, so that I can call you that. So the question was posed on a post that I made that is actually padded out really well, which is called Free CV and Personal Statement Reviews by Dr. Singh, which is a limited run series that I'm building right now. I've actually done 6 CV reviews already, 1 personal statement review, but I got a couple more that I need to do of those. But I'm leaving tomorrow for 10 days, so I may do some when I'm gone, otherwise when I come back. Okay, let's go ahead and rock this thing. So here's the question from Purple Cat. Purple Cat says, I'm in the humanities in a master's program in English, looking to apply for doctoral programs, so Ph.D. programs at the end of this year, and have appreciated your content. Hopefully to make myself the strongest applicant possible, but I realize perhaps that admissions is a bit arbitrary or random at times. I'd ask you this question. How would you manage your time between teaching obligations and research obligations, especially for graduate students who both teach and do research? Is it time management skills? So, Purple Cat, it depends in terms of whether you're talking about to be able to get into graduate school, in terms of the doctoral program, or once you're already in the doctoral program. This is pretty cut and dry when it comes to if you're in the master's program and you want to get into a doctoral program. The answer is very simple. Screw the teaching, right? If you want to do both, 25% teaching, 75%. In terms of when I say research, what I mean is that if you can try to get something published, now remember that there is a huge difference between an impact factor journal in English and an impact factor journal in let's say my field, which is psychology. Impact factors of journals when it comes to psych are going to be much, much higher than in English literature. Why? Because in English, usually you have significantly fewer citations, like references. And remember that impact factor is directly related, like algorithmically related, to how often pieces get cited and also how often new pieces are being published in a journal. And usually English literature journals end up publishing fewer pieces per issue, i.e. issues per volume as well. So that's something that is important to be able to take into consideration, is that I'm not going to ask you to publish in a journal with an impact factor of 32 or something like this. There's really no BMJ level of English literature journals in terms of impact factor, okay? So just something to be able to take into consideration. But getting things published and showing that you deeply care about thought leadership at this stage in the game, when you're a master's student wanting to do the doctorate, teaching is great. You guys know me. I love teaching. It's one of the reasons why I love making these videos for you. That said, at that stage of your career, where when you actually get into the doctoral program, I suppose it's possible, depending on the university where you're doing the doctorate, that you may teach some lower level classes, like an introduction to English literature, for example. I remember there was a doctoral student who taught me, it was my first semester of undergraduate up in Boston, and I took a class called Conformity and Rebellion. And my teacher had this long ponytail, and he was this hippie looking dude and super cool. I really liked him. And so it was one of these things where like he taught that class, but he wasn't teaching some advanced seminar and something, right? And so because of that, your teaching skills, although delightful, are not going to be the things that will actually get you into a program. And that's really, at this stage, that's all I care about. I care about you getting into the program, right? Once you're in there, you can teach and do all this kind of stuff. Fabulous, right? You can even find out whether or not a given doctoral program will give you the opportunity to teach. And then in your personal statement, you can talk about how you've already enjoyed doing that. It sounds like you already have some experience based on your note to me, okay? Based on your question to me. So that would be the case if you're in the master's now, you want to get into the doctoral program, and that's the context of your question. If the context of your question is, I'm already a doctoral student, right? And when you're a doctoral student, should you focus more on teaching or research? This is a really good question because it is really different when it comes to the humanities. I work with a lot of people in the humanities in terms of one-on-one coaching. And you all, obviously, Purple Cat and anybody watching in the humanities, you are also very warmly welcome to book sessions with me so we can talk about your career. Even though I talk a lot about social sciences and hard sciences, engineering programs and biology, chem, and these sorts of things programs, I also help a lot of individuals get into grad school, particularly doctoral programs when it comes to the humanities. One of the things to take into consideration is where you want to end up. If you want to end up teaching at some sort of a post-secondary university, i.e., a postdoctoral program or a doctoral program, if that's kind of where you want to be, maybe you want to work though at a teaching college, teaching focused college, not an R01. Right, so we're not talking about something like Princeton, for example. We're talking about a place that I really like what is it in North Carolina? High Point, right? A friend of mine is a theology professor there. High Point, beautiful campus, wonderful people, very passionate students. It's in North Carolina. If that's where you want to teach, and teach is the principal word there, you should focus more on teaching, and that should be 75% teaching. Get all the teachers' evaluations you can, and really focus on kind of building up a set of curricula in terms of syllabi rather, right? And figuring out what are major courses that are kind of popular, and especially in terms of popular in terms of them being offered, but my recommendation is unpopular in terms of them getting taught. Example, in psychology, if you have somebody coming in who says, I'm willing to teach Introduction to Statistics, I'm interested in teaching Introduction to Research Methods or, experimental psychology, that's great. A lot of people want to teach abnormal psych. A lot of people want to teach social psych, developmental psych. So it's one of these things where the competition is going to be way higher. If you can learn to be able to design courses in whatever the equivalent would be of English literature, you are going to be very, very competitive, particularly if you've already got those course syllabi prepared, you've already got your PowerPoint presentations, your suggested readings and so forth prepared, and you've got killer evaluations, like teacher evaluations for those classes, and you want to teach it at a teaching-focused college, oh my gosh, you're going to clean up in terms of successful applications, I'll tell you right now, particularly proportionally to if you say, I just want to do research. That's what I want to do. English literature research is my passion. I know somebody who's out at Indiana Wesleyan University, and this is their bread and butter, is doing research. They actually get grants, but the grants are very small in nature, $15,000 here, $15,000 there. That may seem like a lot of money to you. In the grant world, that is nowhere near a lot of money, okay? But it's one of these things where, if you're going to get that funding and then you can do some research or whatever, I think that's great. The likelihood that you're going to be a research professor in an English department, though, is minimal, right? Certainly compared to social or hard sciences. So what I would say is that in that case, you got to figure out, do you want to be at a teaching institution or a more research-based institution? It's like an R1, let's say, versus an R3, right? If it's something like an R1, you want a 75-25 split in favor of research and publishing, going and speaking at conferences, giving paper presentations, network, which you should do regardless of the level of the institution that you want to teach at. And then if it's something where it's something like an R3, where research, maybe once a year you present at a conference and you do a poster with some students of yours that you're mentoring or something like that. Wonderful. It's a wonderful thing, right? Or maybe you publish, but you don't publish in like a really esteemed journal. You're just publishing in a journal, right? Maybe a local journal even, right? Fine, right? And then, you can still do that. Be like 25, 75%, 25% research, 75% teaching, right? You got to figure out, though, I want you to think about 10 years in the future. If you ever work with me, this is one of the first things that I ask you is basically, let's just say that I Thanos snap my fingers and we're 10 years in the future. We're having a follow-up session and you tell me what your day-to-day is like and you're happy. You're happy with your life. What does that look like for you? Right? And then we work it all backwards, right? How much money are you going to be making? Where are you going to be living in terms of geographically? Where are you going to be living in terms of literally, are you going to be in an apartment? Are you going to be in a single family home? Are you interested in maybe having a family? Maybe you're not interested in that. That's fine, right? But what does your life look like? And then we work it backwards together and we figure out how to be able to get you there based on the decisions that you're making right now. So if you were to work with me, that's one of the things that we would do, particularly during our first session together, okay? These things are really important. Oftentimes we think so much about work and getting degrees. We don't think about kind of things long-term, especially financial things like how to manage student loan debt and additional ways to be able to make money, right, outside of the norm, right, which would just be kind of, having one job like teaching and this kind of stuff. These days, multiple revenue streams kind of necessary. We can always talk about that in sessions. In any case, guys, that's what I've got for you, though. In terms of, is it time management skills? I would argue it's less time management than it is the allocation of your emotional and temporal energy, right, into one thing or the other thing, right? There's no such thing as work-life balance. Don't let anybody tell you about that lie, right? It's certain. Let me tell you this one or whatever. If you have a child and you're in that hospital and the baby comes out, the last thing you're going to be thinking is, I think I have a meeting with Joe tomorrow. I'm pretty sure. Joe at 11. Let me check my schedule. No, that is life work balance, okay? And then other times you're going to have a grant due the next day, or you have a book and you need to take a look at the galley proofs, the page proofs of the book, right? And it's going to be work-life balance, right? These things, it's like a seesaw, but the fulcrum is what changes. Not the seesaw, the fulcrum changes, right? So that's the thing to take into consideration. Time management is something that everybody wants to do. You watch all these stoicism channels on YouTube and they're like, wake up at 3 a.m. and don't care about anyone or anything, have no attachments, and these sorts of things. Then you have a baby and you call him Marcus Aurelius Singh or something. It's one of these things. Just, don't pay attention to that. But still, it's one of these things where time management is more thinking about the future you want to have and then working everything backwards, okay? So that would be my recommendation. All right, guys, that's what I got for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Please do join our Patreon down below, which we just established. It's a few dollars a month. It really encourages me to keep making videos, and in addition to that, you also get access to exclusive content. You get a one-on-one shout-out from me in a future video. You get access to an exclusive chat community, and you also get access to all of our pre-recorded, or actually not pre-recorded, they're recorded live streams that afterwards are only available via our Patreon. So I try to do some pretty cool stuff on those live streams. And you guys who are Patreon subscribers can always recommend to me topics for live streams. Just did one like that the other day. So, all right, guys, have a great day. Don't forget to get out there, take chances, and be your best self. Peace.